Prince says, anyone using Instagram for outreach at the minute? Matt says, have you ever sold any of your agencies? Will says, where does Frankie see himself in business 5 years from now? What's up, guys? Let's see if we're working here. Come back. There we go. The live is happening. The fun of this, by the way. On my end, every time you guys know, I push a button on Facebook, and then it sits there for like 10 or 15 seconds, and you wonder if you're actually live, and then eventually it says, hey, it's working. Welcome back. Happy Monday. Excited to see you guys again. I know you guys are kicking ass and taking names and solving the world's marketing problems, at least for helping amplify businesses that deserve it. Couple quick announcements before we get rocking and rolling. The Wolf Pack is just getting better and better, and I'm working on like kind of behind the scenes on building more of like a done for you component. I thought about helping people with mentorship and coaching and things like that with accountability. A couple people said they asked, but I thought what better way to keep people accountable than actually just give them a team that can help them do it. So we're slowly but surely building that. Obviously takes a little bit of time, but it is happening. And then also, for those of you guys who are interested, we still have a couple spots in Mexico. I'm actually a little bit surprised they're not already filled up. I've got a bunch of half committals, but I would love for you guys to come hang out in person. We're going to have a mixture of blowing up your business plus good time. And actually, last time, most of the value, even though I think I'm pretty awesome, was people sharing what's working for them with each other. And they just had, everybody has complementary issues. One person's generating 1 million leads but can't close them. Another person can close. Another person's great at fulfillment. And everybody just shares what's working for them and shares teams and resources and things like that. So I think that was actually the coolest part. Plus, we're going to have a great time. Plus, you'll be in paradise, and it's cold other places, and it's not here. So if you guys are thinking of checking it out, let me just actually post this in the comments so you guys can have access. I got a little Google Doc with some details. If you're thinking about coming along, there are 2 different ways to get here. What's up, Paul? One of those is you can fly to the sunny city of La Paz, but it is a small regional airport. And so sometimes you can find flights, sometimes you can't. And then there is a much bigger, international airport 2 hours away in the city of Cabo, and you can catch a shuttle over here. It's like $30, so it's not a big deal. But most people are going to end up flying to Cabo and then taking a shuttle over because there's just way more direct flights, lots of cheaper. But every now and then you do get a cheap flight to La Paz, and it's all good. So anyways, let's get into the good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Frankie Finn proudly brings you our weekly Q&A. All right, so let's get into the good stuff here. You guys are building awesome agencies, and I want to talk to you guys about some today's questions. I was just doing a little review. I think they're extra deep. Let's start with Kevin, who says, Frankie Fan, I'm looking how to close deals with new prospects over chat, text, and email without requiring a phone call. What do you got? So this is an interesting thing because a lot of people don't know this. I'm known as the close over 5-minute Loom video guy, but we actually close a lot of deals without even sending people a video and close people over chat. Now, there are 2 parts to this, okay? So the first part, I don't think enough people understand, so I kind of want to lay this out for you guys, because if you understand this, you'll make your acquisition journey and your ability to print money for the rest of your life like a whole bunch easier, which is understanding most offers, if done right, the person is pre-sold before the point of the offer. I don't think enough people understand that. I'm going to say that again. Most offers are pre-sold before you get to the offer. So if you think about like most businesses that are like really popular, like when you go to Starbucks, like let's use that as an example, like Starbucks is really popular in the world, and maybe McDonald's, because McDonald's is everywhere, even though I haven't eaten McDonald's for like 20 years. But let's use McDonald's as an example. For the most part, you are pre-sold on McDonald's before you get to the building, right? So it's not like it's going to make or break at the moment of the offer. You may change course a little bit for what you order, but you were sold on McDonald's before you got into the building. The same thing is true, like, I was going to use Starbucks. And this can be true of like not just like little $5 low ticket items, but this can be true for $50,000 or $100,000 high ticket packages as well. And so a lot of people don't understand this, but I will lay it out as simply as I can, is that we use digital media to pre-sell our offers so that when people actually arrive at the offer, they've already made a decision, and it's just, do I want a Big Mac combo and do I want the extra supersized fries? So a lot of like closing happens before the sales conversation. And so why a lot of people struggle with this is because they have no pre-selling in place. They're trying to go from cold to sold in a single leap and bound. And I would much rather have content and pieces of digital media out there. I like to say the hardest working salesperson in our company is digital me, and that's done by design. And there's a reason for that. Digital you is like a 24/7 workhorse, never takes time off. So what I like to do is build up a couple of digital media. You don't need a million of these, by the way. Most of you guys can get by with like maybe 5 of these. If you have 5 really good digital media pieces that you can send people to again and again and again, it's people don't understand that process. So that's the first part is I don't like talking to people that are less than a 7 out of 10 on an offer. And what I want is to really only talk to 7, 8s, 9s, and 10s, right? Like I want my digital media to do the pre-screen. Now, having said that, we do close people over text, and this can be done entirely cold. It's obviously harder when it's entirely cold, and I don't recommend it, but it absolutely can be done. And so we have a framework for how to close people over chat, and I'll give you guys the rough framework. If you really just understand really the simple basics, and this is going to sound overly simplistic, but you really want to know like 4 things. One of those is, why are they interested in solving this problem? Like why? And why is actually the real reason they're buying the thing. Like I've said this before, but you're not selling the thing you think you're selling. Like a lot of times people, like for example, I've seen people sell like Facebook and a Google ads and a retargeting package. And like, I hate to break it to you, but nobody's buying Facebook ads or Google ads. They're buying a deeper level thing. It may be for them. Like, I'll give you a real example of a conversation I had with a business owner. They were talking about like, hey, if we don't figure out this slow period, then what's going to happen is we're going to have to lay some staff off. And so they're not buying Facebook and Google ads. They're buying like, I want to get work for my team so I don't have to fire anybody, right? Because everybody hates firing somebody, especially if they're like a good worker, right? So if you understand the deeper level things, so why is one of the pillars of being able to close in chat without even having to send a video. The second piece is you have to know what they're sick and tired of and fed up with now. So like, what is the problem they're actually trying to solve? And a lot of times we almost skip this and want to talk about our thing. And I'll tell you, this is a writer downer, but they're buying their way out of their problem more than they're buying their way into your solution. So if you really understand that, you spend some time trying to understand what problem it is they're trying to fix. Hey, my staff is slow. I don't want to have to fire them, right? So often like there's some overlap in why in the problem, not always entirely, but there's some overlap there. Then you want to know about outcome. What are they after? And then the last place is what is their plan to get there, right? And you want to have a clearly different and desirable plan. If you combine those things where you know why they're interested in it, what problems they're trying to solve, what outcomes they're after, and what is their plan to get there, you can close in chat very easily. And I'll tell you what's interesting about that is a lot of times people think it's harder to close in chat, but it's actually easier. And I'll tell you the biggest reason is because people don't feel that implied sales pressure. Like they don't have to text you back right away. And so as a result, they tend to open up more honestly and real right from the start because there's none of that implied sales pressure. Like I don't know if you guys I'll give you an example. My last girlfriend loved getting free shit from timeshare presentations. We'd go travel somewhere, they'd have a timeshare presentation, we'd sit for 2-3 hours and get free tickets to something or whatever. And I remember one of them, they were asking us how much vacation we went on, and I knew that if I said a lot, they were going to try and use that at the end to sell me a timeshare. So we said just a teeny tiny little bit, and we were not entirely honest with them. And that's very common to like not be honest with salespeople. Well, that doesn't happen as much in chat because they know they can easily walk away, right? So you tend to have more real and honest conversation. So it took me a lot of years to realize it's actually easier to close in chat. And so we do this over text, we do this over email, we do this over SMS, we do this over Facebook Messenger, done it over Instagram. Even I think have started those conversations and then closed them elsewhere over YouTube, right? So it's like If you understand the basic process, but those are the 4 pillars of understanding why they want to solve this problem now. What is the problem they're actually trying to solve? What outcome would make them happy? And what is your different and desirable plan to get there? If you do that, you'd be amazed. You can close motherfuckers in chat quite easily without a lot of resistance. And this is the core of, like, this is just from me having done, like, you know, more than 1,000, probably close to 2,000 sales calls in my life. And you just learn, like, what people really want to know. So hope that's helpful, Kevin. And for any of you guys thinking about closing over chat, I will post after, but to your comment originally, I put the links for how to close on Loom for free on YouTube. You guys can check that out. Just search our channel, Beyond Agency Profits, and then type in training Loom, and you'll find it. So we'll show you how we close in video. But actually, it is a thing. We don't always even get to the video. Sometimes we just close people without even that. Basil asks, for those of you doing one-to-many prospecting, how do you overcome the hurdle of the person or the agent you're interacting with who has the distribution not really caring about it or portraying the offer correctly to his list as it should be portrayed? In other words, half-assing it to his list. I know that we have a level of bias for our service, like parents naturally caring more for their own babies than their parents' babies. But is there a way to get the person agent on board with you beyond explaining the benefits and the value to them? In a way, this also reverts to becoming one-to-one prospecting, since we are now simply prospect to another type of business owner. So how can we predetermine which agent is already a buyer of mutually beneficial deals, if that makes sense? So for those, a little bit of backstory for those of you who are not familiar with Basil's question. Basil, I hope I'm saying it correctly. So the longer I do this, I'm a bigger believer that the way most people prospect is like crazy inefficient. And I compare it to, like, my first ever job selling chocolate bars door to door. It's like, if you knock on enough doors long enough, you'll sell chocolate bars. But I've also been in the agency space where, like, for a lot of years I spoke at a lot of legal conferences, and I would go speak on stage, and I'd come off stage and we'd have 5, 10, 15 clients, and it was very normal to, like, pick up $30, $40, $50,000 in recurring business in an hour's speech. And it wasn't unique to me. Like, most people who went there spoke for that reason, because they would pick up, you know, a bunch of recurring business and do that, like, you know, from stage. So that's my way of saying that I believe in one-to-many prospecting. And so one-to-many would look like, for me, and this is just one example, but I don't try and prospect to 10,000 lawyers. I try and find the one person who has a conference of 10,000 lawyers and give them a reason why they should have me to speak there. Or I find the person who has a podcast of 10,000 people in my industry and figure out why I can get on there. Or I'll find, you know, whoever's got the top mastermind in our group, in our space, and see how I can make a presentation to their mastermind. And the way you do this, by the way, is there are 3 tiers of this. And I'll tell you why most people struggle with this is because you have to think a little bit strategically. And the difference between I call this chess versus checkers. Checkers is a really simple game. You move left or right, and eventually when you get to the end, you can go backwards, but it's like really simple. You go left or right and you jump over people. And so there's not like really a lot of strategy. If you compare that to chess, the best chess players like sometimes thinking like 10 moves in advance, right? And so that's when you're thinking about chess, you're not just thinking about your immediate move, but you're thinking about what you're going to do in step 2, 3, 4, and you're being very strategic with your moves. So what happens is when you meet somebody, or you've specifically sought out somebody who has an audience of your people that you would want to prospect with, the first step for me is not to try and sell them anything. It is to engage in the process of co-creation. I call this a coffee date. Like, let's create something cool together. And so the biggest tip I can give you on kind of getting in their good graces is to just do what they're already doing. So there is no one-size-fits-all answer, but if they're doing expert interviews, then I will propose the idea that I have a really cool expert interview. If they're doing a podcast, then I'll propose the idea that I got an expert podcast. If they're doing weekly trainings for their group, I'll say I got a really good idea for a weekly training. It's always the same, but it's always different, right? So because I'm not trying to convince them to do things they're not doing. So if you have somebody who doesn't regularly do trainings for their group and you say, let me do a free training, you'll get resistance about it. But if they do a podcast every week and you say, hey, I got an idea for a podcast, they'll almost always say, yeah, right? So step 1 is that step of co-creation. And that is like the coffee date. That's just getting to know each other. That looks a lot like banging, but it's not. It's just this, and that's step 1. And you don't make any money on step 1, just so you know, because you have to be strategic and think a couple steps past that. Step 2 is when I will propose the idea of let me help one of your clients, and I will either do it for free or at cost to do something cool and make you look good. And that's when the door starts to open. And they're not going to turn over their entire client roster you at once, because they have a lot to lose in that process. But if you can prove it for one person, then they'll give you 2, and then they'll give you 3. And what happens is, this has been my experience a few times, where I've had single partners that literally sent me like more than 100 clients. And when you guys sell like anything from like $1,000 to a $10,000 per month service, like that shit adds up real fucking fast, right? Like when you have one person sending you 100 different clients, right? And that, like, if you're talking to the person in your space who has a podcast of 10,000 audience listeners, they know 100 people they could send to you very easily. So, like, that is the process. Coffee date starts with co-creating. Then step 2 is propose the idea of let me help 1 or 2 people. And then it's like, hey, what would it look like if we did this for everybody? And you have to be able to think 3 levels deep in order to make that work. Where people get it wrong is they show up in step 1 and you're a complete stranger and you're an unknown and they don't trust you and they don't have any reason to trust you. And they go, send me all your fucking people. And it doesn't in my experience, it doesn't work like that. But if you do just a little bit of trust building, and this takes just a couple of weeks, we're not talking months or years. Like, it takes a couple of weeks to build a relationship with these people, co-create something cool, help one of their clients, then help a bunch of them, right? It's like, it's not crazy complex, but you have to get out of the binary. And I'll tell you, I have a friend in our space now, Dave Miz. When I first met Dave, he rocks an awesome e-commerce email agency, but back in the early days, he had a product called Insider Internet Dating. He was on ClickBank, and they sold like the pickup artist kind of thing, as that world is called. And I remember the thing that was most interesting to people back in those days is the line. What is the line I'm going to say to a girl that's going to get her to like want to throw her underwear at me, get all freaky deaky real fast? And this is the truth that nobody wants to hear, is there is no magic fucking line. And the sooner you give up on the idea of a magic line and focus on building like real connections and real relationships, the faster that'll happen. And that's the process I follow every time for building real relationships, whether it's with suppliers, referral partners, employees. You guys, coffee date, first date, marriage. But I don't go straight to marriage. It's always coffee date, let's co-create something. First date, let's try a small working arrangement, marriage. And if you do that, what will happen is it will be very easy for you to bridge those relationships and create those one-to-many situations. And what will happen is, by the way, most of you guys don't realize, because this has probably never happened to you, but it's happened to me more than a few times growing an agency. You're literally one strategic partner away from having $1 million business. And the reason most people don't get them is because they're too busy chasing the magic script. What is the outbound line I'm going to say? What is the AI generated script that's going to get me all the fucking clients? Instead of just focusing on building connections with people who have all the people you want to know already. So you guys who followed me in the 90-day challenge saw, like, this is what we did essentially in the restoration space. I connected with a bunch of industry leaders and built relationships with them and co-created some stuff, and now people are reaching out. I have more in my inbox to start this day. As I'm already recording, I'm a little bit behind, but good news is we close on chat and video, so digital sales me is working extra hard in the background. But that's it. It's not super complicated. So the thing that gets people stuck is they go to straight to promote my stuff, and the only people who do that are like, don't really have a relationship with their audience. So I hope that's helpful to you guys. I hope that clears some of the mud. Prince says, anyone using Instagram for outreach at the minute? Whenever I get one of these questions that, is anyone doing blank successfully? The truth is, there's like 10-20% that are crushing it with it, and then there's 80% of people that are on some, it works a little bit to it's a whole struggle and I haven't been able to make it work spectrum. And so whenever you ask, does blank work? The answer is yes, because I'm like, chances are I know somebody making it work. The biggest thing is I am personally, and I'm not saying you guys have to share the same philosophy, but I am personally platform agnostic, meaning I don't give a fuck about Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Instagram, email, wherever. The simplest advice I could give you if you're doing cold outreach is go where your audience is already. And that's different things to different audience. So if I was trying to reach a e-commerce store owners. I would go to like Facebook communities where they gather on things like Shopify and Klaviyo and review systems and et cetera, right? Like Facebook ads for e-commerce. I would go to those places, not because I love those places, but that's where the audience is already. When I first started prospecting for lawyers, I did it on LinkedIn, and I did it because there's a lot of lawyers on LinkedIn. And if I was doing what I call the redneck niches, like the contractors work with my hands, I might like text or call them or send them something by mail, or even physically go to a place where there's a meetup of them, because that's where they hang out. So does Instagram work for outreach? Yes, but the caveat is you want to go there because your audience is there, not because like you're just trying to make Instagram work for the sake of Instagram working, which is not how you want to do this game. So to me, it's like, first, be strategic. Figure out where your audience is already and go there. It sounds simple, but you would be amazed at people say, well, my audience isn't really on Facebook ads, but I'm trying to make Facebook ads work. Well, if your audience isn't on Facebook ads, you need to be somewhere else. Like, just go wherever they are, right? It sounds simple, but you'd be amazed at how often people violate this obvious rule. Oh, Scott. I'm going to tag our man, Scott. So Scott asks, let me see if I can give him the old Tagarooski. Tagarooski, there we go. Where's Scott? There we go. I told him I was going to tag him on this. So Scott says, where can someone find decent salespeople? Okay. I want you to understand there are like two distinct parts to what I see as bringing in somebody competent for any discipline. One is the prerequisites. Like, I don't know if you guys ever remember, like in school, like if you want to go to like college or something like that, you have to have, if you want to go into engineering program, you have to have these 3 math classes before they'll let you in. That's called a prerequisite. And I believe in order to bring in good salespeople, one of the biggest missing pieces for a lot of people are prerequisites. And I'll give you 2 prerequisites that I think will be game changers. One, let me give you 3. One is an offer that is easy to sell. Like, if you're depending on the salespeople to be fucking great at what they do, you're gonna have a really hard time. You want your offers to be so stupid fucking simple they can be sold on a sign. If you think about it, this is what McDonald's does, right? Like, they just put the offer on a sign. Get 2 McDoohickeys for $2.99. Right? They don't depend on the pimply-faced teenager to have like amazing sales skills. That whole thing would fall apart if that was needed to actually close a deal. If you think about Apple does not depend on great salespeople, because the offer of like, here's a phone that has all these apps and phone, all your contacts, and has like, Apple doesn't train their salespeople. They don't know anything about fucking selling at all. And yet, Apple sells a ton of shit. And the reason it works is really, really simple. Is because the offer of get a phone for $700 or whatever the fuck price it is, shows you how little I know, that I have no idea what actual price they are. But the fact that like the offer is doing the heavy lifting, they don't depend on the salespeople to be awesome. So one of the prerequisites is have an offer that can be sold without great salesmanship. You still want great salespeople, but this is a prerequisite that will make your life easier. The second thing is, if you have sold it before in the past, and ideally if you're hiring a salesperson you have, now I know that's true in your case, Scott, but a lot of times people want salespeople to sell offers that are unproven. And that's generally a bad idea because you're just trying to put the risk on someone else, but you need to have recordings of those sales calls so that anybody can hear a successful sale done right. Because I've seen this before where people take all kinds of trainings and things about selling and blah, 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 and they don't know how to do it. And the minute they hear a successful call, they get it. So I like to have a library of like 5 or 10 successful sales that when somebody comes to work for you as part of their onboarding, listen to these 5 or 10 calls and get what it's like to sell our shit. And once they get it, and they'll be able to replicate whatever is already working for you. And then the third piece is the more you can have proof in the form of case studies and testimonials and things like that, that will assist that salesperson, the more success. So these are the prerequisites: offer, recorded sales calls that they can listen to as part of your training. And I just had a mind blank But I just said proof in terms of case studies and testimonials. You put those three things together, and what you'll find is you will have far, far better success hiring salespeople. I noticed, like, it says there's a lot of comments, but I don't see any of them on my side. Maybe I should open up a new tab and see if, what's up with that? Sometimes, like, the comments don't come in. There we go. The greatest is live. I'm glad Will thinks I'm the greatest. I'm a solid 6 out of 10 with giant balls of steel. Zach says, hey, how are you doing, my man? On average, how long does it take from the Loom you send in chat to closing from your experience? Anywhere from like instantaneous to a couple days, depending on the amount of objections and things they need to look at. I like not to force the issue, believe it or not, because I want people to come in like not feeling forced, because I find it makes the whole transition to the sale easier. You may have different goals and different objectives, but usually anywhere from like, sometimes people watch a video, like will literally sign up like 5 minutes after I send it. I'll send it, I'll see that like Loom will send me a notification, they clicked it, and then I'll get, hey, that sounds great, let's do it. And that's it. Like, and that's the close. Okay, cool. I'm going to send you the link, the payment link. Let's get started. And they do it. Sometimes, like, you know, there's a little bit of back and forth, and sometimes you have to reignite old conversations. Like, hey, I thought we were going to go forward. Will says, how long till the second book? This is just an estimate, because obviously it'll be till it's done. Like, I can't like put an exact timeline on it. But last time I was around this part for my last book, it took me about a month and a half. So I'm ballparking like hopefully like in 2 months we'll be finished. Matt says, have you ever sold any of your agencies? I have not. My man, I'm like really stupid that I burned my shit to the ground when I actually probably could have sold it. But I know a lot of people who have, so I have a fair bit of education on that process. But if you're thinking of selling it, Dr. Coffee, I would speak with Alex Neem, because he's a broker for this kind of thing. But what's different about him compared to most brokers is he has a Rolodex of buyers and knows what they're looking for. So he can give you like a heads up whether or not like his people would be interested. But I think a broker who shows up with interested buyers is exponentially different than someone who's just going to like list it for sale and take calls on your behalf. Hetty says, hey, Frankie. Larry says, good stuff. Good to see you, Larry. Oscar says, how do you deal with hiring? Like, when do you think you need to hire someone, and what does your system look like? Oh, sorry, I skipped Oscar. I read Zach's question as Oscar. Let me scroll up a second. Oscar, I'll give you a sneak preview, because it sounds like he's interested in the income assets. So there are two pieces that kind of make up the passive automated recurring income, and it is the idea that the most valuable thing on the internet is actually distribution. It's a bunch of eyeballs who pay attention to you religiously. And then the number one hidden metric of whether or not people make money is offers made. And there is a special kind of offer called a recurring offer. And it's an offer that has like, you know, built into it like repeated payments. And you would be amazed at how many people on the internet have distribution, meaning they make content for the sake of content, have millions of followers, and make zero from all their content, or sometimes get the occasional sponsorship. And so you simply show up to them and say, hey, I have an idea to make money, and you plug in affiliate-related recurring offers, which can be like software tools, can be all kinds of things, but I like software and tools. And you simply plug it into their distribution, and because they already have millions of people or hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of people that pay attention to them, the offers work almost immediately, especially if they're related to the thing. So like if there's a guy who built up a cooking channel, it's got 2 million views, and you figure out how to make a recurring, hey, we'll send you pizza flour every month offer, and you put it below his video, you'll sell a lot of pizza flour, and there's nothing for you to deliver. And the deals are super easy to put in place, because what happens is when most people try and pitch their stuff, if you boil down the message to the most basic shit, it would be buy my shit. And people struggle with varying degrees of being able to say buy my shit. But if you have a very different kind of offer where you're saying, hey, I want to pay you money for what you've created, it's like I notice people don't struggle on Facebook Marketplace to have outreach, because usually you're coming as the buyer. You go, hey, I'm interested in buying your thing. How much is it? Blah, blah, blah. I'd like to pay you for it. When, right? And it's very similar to that. Rather than showing up to somebody saying, hey, you want to buy my shit? If you hire me, I'll get you more likes and more subscribers and more of this. Just pay me $2,000 a month. Instead of doing that, you're saying, hey, like you created this cool thing and I figured out a way to get you some money for it. Can I just like set this thing up and pay you every month for what you've already created? So it becomes super easy to get those yeses. So I go into more detail in the book how we do that, but it's really combining distribution and recurring offers, that's the magic formula. And you can do this like you can create $5,000 a month in cash flow and not even need a client and have zero fuck all to deliver. So I'm really excited to show this to you guys, because it's part of the reason, like for me, like I'm now at the stage, and I'm not saying all you guys are here, but I'm thinking about things that will outlive me, and I want to create recurring cash flow systems, things like that for my kids, so that they don't have to work shitty ass jobs and do things that they don't want to do. And so a big part of this is, and I go into the details in the book, but it's just distribution plus recurring offer. And there's 18,000 ways you can spin those principles. I'll show you guys how I'm doing them right now. But it's like, it's almost so easy, because anytime you show up to somebody and you say, hey, you created this thing, it's super valuable, I want to pay you for it and send you a recurring check every month, would you be open to that? And I'm going to make you look good in the process. You don't get very many no's. When you show up as trying to buy something, trying to give somebody money, you get through to the speed pass. So it's about like helping other people monetize the distribution they've already created and don't know how to monetize. And the reason they don't monetize it is very fucking simple. The number of offers they make is zero. Right? It's amazing to me. It's like the most predictable thing in the world. Oh, you got 500,000 followers? How many offers do you make? Zero. Well, I'll bet you make zero from it, right? So anyways, that's a little rant, but I'm going to get that to you guys as soon as I can. Zach says, how do you deal with hiring? Like, when do you think you need to hire somebody? And what does your system look like? So I'll give you a crash course in hiring, Zach. When you need to hire, there's no really set. I know everybody says like only do it at this point, but honestly it depends on how big you want to build the thing. Like if you're just trying to get to 10, 20K a month, you might only need a single virtual assistant to manage it, or an account manager, or a salesperson if you don't want to do the selling. If you're trying to get to 200K a month and sell your agency, that is a very different game than like, you know. So depending on where you're trying to build your vision, like to me, if I'm trying to go to like 150K a month, then I'm going to put people in as fast as humanly possible, because getting me out of it is priority one. And that may mean like the agency may make 20K a month and I'm spending 20K a month on a team, because I'm not buying a 20K a month team. I'm buying a 150K a month team, and I need to put infrastructure in place. So just like with like bringing in good salespeople, there are prerequisites. And I'll tell you, when you don't have them, hiring is really fucking hard. And when you do have them, hiring is really easy, okay? So the first thing that I think is the most important thing with hiring is any repetitive tasks that you do, that you want to give somebody, you need a procedure, a set of step-by-step instructions for how to do it. You would be amazed when you bring people in and there are 20 sets of instructions for the 20 things they need to do. You will not have a hard time finding really good people. But if you just say like, hey, say you're hiring somebody and you go, make me a thumbnail, and you don't have a process for a thumbnail, and you say, post my content on YouTube, and you don't really have a process for that, like you're going to have difficulty with it. So a lot of times, like for example, like in my first hiring, this is one of the things we figured out. Back in the early days, I had about 35, 40 VAs, and we did a lot of posting content. That was our kind of main thing, because SEO, especially back then, required a lot of content. Still does, but even more so back then. And so I used to have VAs that wrote articles over and over. And in the beginning, I tried to teach them how to write plastic surgery articles, and I tried to get all these people to hire. Eventually, what I figured out is once I had like 10, 20 templates for what made a good plastic surgery article, and they could reference those over and over and rewrite them, I could hire almost any good writer, because they were all following the same basic procedure. So that's the first thing, is get the prerequisites down, is like have a clear set of instructions for what they're going to do. Whatever job it is they're going to do, right? I would never hire a salesperson without giving them, here's example sales calls of us closing successfully. I would never hire a customer service rep or a client service rep, an account manager, whatever you want to call them. I would never hire them without having example conversations and how we like to resolve them, and example questions and what are some of the right answers. I would never bring in a content person without examples of content and step-by-step instructions for how to do everything. So prerequisites are that. And then the second thing, and this has been the biggest hiring for me, like hack of all time, which is test them on the thing they're actually going to do. So I do paid trial assignments. So I say, hey, I'll pay you $5 or $10 to do a trial assignment, and then I give them a small version of the thing they're about to do. So if they're going to sell, I have them sell. If they're going to do cold outreach, I have them do cold outreach. If they're going to manage a client question, I may not have them actually reply to a client, but I'll give them 3-4 real things clients have said and see how they respond to it. If they're going to be pitching podcasts for me, then I have them pitch a podcast. If they're going to be uploading content to YouTube and creating thumbnails, then I have them upload a piece of content to YouTube and create a thumbnail. It sounds really obvious, but Perry Marshall calls this the audition. And the idea is really simple, is the way most people hire, at least in my opinion, makes no fucking sense. Like none. And so like the example of that is, imagine you go to play with a band and they say, well, I'm going to interview you, Zach. And when we're finished that interview, I'd like to give you 5 references, and then Johnny, our guitar guy, is going to give you a second round of interviews if you pass the first qualifying interviews. You would still learn nothing about them as a musician. And it's so much easier just to get out the guitars and play. And then go, after like 2-3 songs, you know whether or not you guys are going to make music together or not. And so what I will do is I will write out the trial assignment in a Google Doc. If you're interested, send me a message. I'll send you examples of ones we use or have used historically. And then I just have people, I send them the document. When they say they're interested, our hiring process is also phoneless. When people are interested, I send them the document and I say, go try and do this, and I'll pay you, $10 for it or whatever. And what happens is if you give it to 20 people, 10 of them will, 12 of them will just never do it. You'll never hear from them again. 8 of them will do it, and so you have to spend $80 to find a good candidate. And what you'll find is only like 3 or 4 of them actually do it well. And then I might give those 3-4 a second trial assignment, and only 2 of those will do it well. And I'll end up with 2 good candidates to pick from. And usually both of those people will work out. The only thing, I wouldn't say I bat 100. Sometimes you still have attitude issues, or like people don't show up to work or do what they say they're going to do. But for the most part, if you do that, you're going to have way more success hiring, because you'll end up with, you have all the frameworks so that they know what they're going to do after they get hired, and you'll test them on the thing they're going to do. And so you'll just end up with way better candidates in general. And that's really it. Like, that's been my hiring secret. I learned this from a guy named John Jonas. I never worked with him or anything. It was just reading his free shit. He is the founder of onlinejobs.ph, which a lot of you guys will know is the Filipino hiring website. And I read his blog religiously for like 5 years. And because I was really shit at hiring. But once I started doing those things of like really getting my SOPs in order so that they know what they're going to do, and then testing them on the thing they do, like, we have a very high batting average. I wouldn't say I bat 1,000, but like 70-80% of the hires we get work out. I still have to fire people every now and then. And then the other piece is sometimes I'll give them a probationary period. I won't just hand them keys to the castle and say, hey, you have a safe, secure job. I'll say, hey, I really like you, and I'm really excited about you, Zach, and I want to work with you. I found that, sometimes what I think will be awesome doesn't work out. So I'd like to try it for like 60 days. I'll pay you, like your salary of blah, blah, blah. And then periodically I'm going to check in with you. I'm going to see that it's still working for both of us. Me in terms of like, am I still getting the work and the output and the things I need from you? And you in terms of like, do you still like working for me? Do you still like doing this work? And what I find is it creates a culture where they have to go out and earn the job they got rather than being handed. I call it the backup quarterback. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this in the NFL. Whenever a quarterback struggles, the most popular guy in town becomes the backup quarterback. Because like, hey, give this guy a shot. Like the top guy isn't getting the job done. And almost always in that realm of competition, they have to go out and earn their job. They don't just get handed a cushy salary like, it's some big corporate giant where nobody ever gets fired kind of thing. Outside of, a sexual assault charge or showing up to work pissed drunk in their underwear. It's like, the places where it's very hard to get fired. Instead of having that kind of cushy corporate-y feel, you have this like backup or starting quarterback where they're looking over their shoulder knowing I got to go out there and perform to keep my job. You do that, you'll end up with good people more often than not, and you'll be able to delegate work a lot easier. I used to think that I would never find good people, and I didn't want to be a micromanager, but people were just shit. Nobody cared about my business like I do, and it was really just because my hiring process was broken. And so I was micromanaging people because I didn't have good people I could delegate to. But once you have good people to delegate to, it's much easier to relax and take it easy and those kind of thing. Will says, where does Frankie see himself in business 5 years from now? So this is the subjective book too, since a lot of people have been asking. Will is I'm working on passive automated recurring income, like to the extreme, and I want to make it so that like I essentially have legacy money for my kids, where their ability to earn. And what I do with the passive automated recurring income is it's multiplying in the background things like stocks, and then borrowing, or index funds in particular, then borrowing against them, putting it in real estate. And what I'm working on, who knows how it'll work out, but I'm building like a nest egg that like that is more for my kids than for me. Like, we got a pretty good life now. Like, I'm not saying it's all perfect. We have challenges and problems just like normal people, but I don't know. I just want them to be able to do what they really love in life and not have to get stuck doing a bunch of shit work. Jean says, hey, Frankie Finn, question. In the Q&A today, you give an example with weight loss and how you need to show the before and after pictures, not talking about doing the weight, broccoli shakes, and kicking their ass. I'm using a white labeled service for ads, and they won't give me any specific before and after pictures. And what I mean is they won't provide any specific numbers, such as we can expect X number of listings or X amount of leads based on my ad spend. They always respond with, it depends on many factors, such as the market, location, how much they put in ad spend. So I can't really give a specific number. Just trust me that it'll work. I've been doing this for over 10 years, or I can't give any info on this because of NDAs. Okay, so this, I'm not going to lie to you, this is a handicap, but it's a small one, okay? And the handicap is, whenever you have proof of results, like case studies and testimonials, you can beat motherfuckers over the head and just show them those, and it'll practically sell your shit. Like, I have a friend who has a video marketing agency where he creates like these really killer videos for lawyers. They're doing almost 100 million per year now. It's a massive video editing agency, and whenever they want to sell videos, all they got to do is show other videos they've made for lawyers and go, we can make you one like this, and it sells itself, right? Because they have the proof in the case studies and testimonials. Now, there is a tendency to think that when you don't have these things, you can't sell your shit. And I'm here to tell you the biggest reason most people can't sell their shit is because they don't have a real plan for what they're going to do for the clients. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times people think, I'm going to get hired, and then I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do for this client and really dial it in for them. And I promise you, if you switch the order of those things, you'll get paid more often. So my favorite example of this, okay, is there was a girl who was, it was just a conversation I read, not anybody I know personally or anything, but they were asking, how did you get your first client? And she said, I was doing web design, and I got connected with a local restaurant, and I looked at their website, and it was old, it was ugly, it was shit, it was outdated, it loaded slow, you couldn't find anything, and it had like, you know, weird graphics, and you couldn't click it or navigate it. And so I had an idea for a website, and I brought it to them, and I printed, I created a mock-up, and I went inside and went to the owner and said, I printed it out and said, this is what I want to build you, this right here. This is your website now. It's old, it's ugly, it's shit, and I want to build you this, and it would cost you X number of dollars. Now, what most people do is the opposite, is they say, hire me as a web designer, and then I'll create a mock-up for you, and then I'll create a design and blah, 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 those things. But I'm promising you, if you reverse the order of those things, where you have a clear plan for your client, and then you say, just pay me to execute this plan, you'll get hired way more often. So that means if a client's interested in potentially like talking to you and you don't have numbers to show them exactly which keywords you're going to bid on. Show them what kind of landing pages you want to run. Show them what kind of offers you want to test. Like, bring to them the plan for how you're going to get them what they want. It doesn't, by the way, you don't have to actually build it. You just have to understand it in your own mind. This is what I'm actually going to do for you. And you'll be amazed. People will hire you even if you don't have proof, even if you have, because proof and case studies are valuable, but the only thing we're trying to look for is, will it work for me? I don't care that you did it for 600 other people. I want to know if it'll work for me. And if you show up with a real plan that makes sense to me, I will buy it. So whenever you don't have those things and you don't have all this proof and you don't have this case studies, don't use it as a handicap. Just get creative. And all you got to do is think about, if I already had this client, if they were already paying me, what would I do for them? And then present them that as if they're already paying you and saying, if you'd like me to implement it, it'll be this much. And you just give them the plan for free. Zach says, exercise for you, Frankie. If you lost everything and had to make $1 million in profit in under a year, what would you do? I'll tell you, I would not want to lose everything. But if I did, I wouldn't lose any sleep over it. And that's the honest to God's truth. And I'll tell you why. I've said this to lots of people over the years. I said, would you rather have $1 million in the bank? And for most people, that represents at least enough security that, for a good part of their life, they don't have to worry. Would you want the $1 million in the bank, or would you want 0 in the bank, but have the skill set to create $1 million whenever you want? And people always say, oh, I'll take the skill set. If you could give me the skill set, I'll take the skill set. And so to me, the skill set is the most important thing. Now, this is probably, again, going deep into book 2, which you guys are going to get to read. But I believe that there are 3 distinct ways that poor, middle class, and wealthy people earn their money. And poor people, generally, they either work for a shitty hourly wage or get some kind of handout, like a government check or something like that. And it's usually they're usually just trying to survive to the weekend, get drunk, go through another week, survive till time off. That's kind of the goal. When you see middle class people, they usually work for a salary. I'm going to shoot you guys the finger because middle class people are in the middle right there. Middle class people usually work for a salary and benefits, and they're usually at they get a decent hourly wage, not enough that it's great, but enough that they can afford things like a house and a car, and are working towards that. That's becoming even harder to do, middle class. That's a whole discussion for another day. And wealthy people work for the control and ownership of assets, and then use those assets to generate money. So the example I give is the wealthiest guy I know back home is this old Italian guy. I'm not even sure if he's still alive. He was 80 years old, and I haven't talked to him for 10 years, but his name is Franco. And Franco owns 7 apartment buildings and a golf course. And the reason he was so wealthy is because he owns 7 apartment buildings and a golf course, right? It's really obvious, right? It's the apartment buildings and the golf course, his assets that paid for his lifestyle. What most people don't understand is that there are digital equivalents of those assets. And just like I see this really obviously in real estate, but it's not so obvious in the digital world. So classic example, my brother-in-law, he bought a house. He spent 7-8 months fixing it up so that he could make a bunch of money. And when he got to the point where it was all fixed up and ready to go after 7-8 months of blood, sweat, and tears, it ended up not being worth it. Essentially, as much as he had invested into it, that's how much he was going to make back, and he would break even after busting his ass for 8 months. And if you guys understand real estate, that whole scenario went wrong when he bought it. Not when he sold it. When he sold it, he realized I paid too much. But actually, the whole journey began wrong with how much he paid for it. Now, the reason I say this, in the digital world, it is super easy to get control of valuable assets, and even most internet marketers don't see them. So if I had to create $1 million, I would simply secure $1 million of distribution, and I would do that by just the way you get control of assets, by the way, you do not need money to do it. I know everybody thinks you need money, but you can pay, for example, with future money. You can say hey, I want to help you monetize this stream you've created, and why don't we just split some of the profits? I'll help you monetize it, and every month I'll just send you a royalty check for what you've created. That's paying with future money. It costs you nothing to do today. And so what most people don't realize is they're working for the wrong thing. At least in my opinion, if your goal is to have $1 million in profit, most people are working towards the wrong thing. And the thing they think they're trying to work for is to sell services, to get people to buy my product or service. And that is middle class thinking taken to the extreme. I give an example, but the most successful story in the Wolfpack so far is a gentleman who he's now at $600K per week, not per month, per week in his business. And he actually is doing the bulk of that with a small handful of clients, less than 5 to be exact. So $600K a week with less than 5 clients, and they are partnership deals. And so they give him a list of people, he goes through and he converts that list of people and brings them sales, and every time they close a sale, he gets a percentage of that. They provide the list, the leads, everything. He's essentially just doing follow-up and things like that. Now, I shudder to think what would happen if he sold those as a $2,000 a month, all follow up with your lead service. 1, it would have been harder to sell, and 2, he'd be making a fuck of a lot less money, right? Doing it, even though I'm sure, you could probably still make it work and go and find those people. So this is my way of saying that if I was dead broke, I would focus on getting in front of distribution, and you'd be amazed if you do that, you'll sell a lot of shit. And what I'm writing about in book 2 is really gonna, I hope, blow your minds with what's possible for a lot of you guys, because it used to be, for selling shit, distribution was in the hands of a small few many. So that meant, like, if you sold through TV, like, when I was growing up, there were like 5 fucking channels, and 2 of them you had to hold the bunny ears at the perfect spot and be like, no, Jordan, don't let go of the fucking bunny ears, right? And so, you know, CBS, Fox, ABC, like places like that controlled all the distribution of offers and things to be sold. Well, in the social media age, there are billions of motherfucker equals distribution is really anybody who has an audience of people who pay attention to them in its simplest form. And there are people who have audiences that don't know how to monetize them. And what most people do is they show up and they try and sell agency services. So I'll give you an example. I have a friend named Rich. And Rich is a super cool guy. I met him here in Australia. We've hung out lots. He stayed at my house. Just, you know, awesome dude. He has a motorcycle channel that he put up on YouTube. It's a hobby of his. He creates all these super cool motorcycle videos. Rich has 500,000 subscribers on his motorcycle channel. And I asked him the other day, like, how he was doing with that. And his answer was, I make zero. The old zero from it. I make $0 from my motorcycle channel. Now, I know that from doing this that like 0 offers made is the reason why you're making 0, right? He's not even like running, like turning, he hasn't even turned on the ad system. He like literally makes 0 from 500,000 subscribers. And there are like millions of motherfuckers who've created content for the sake of content, who have massive amounts of distribution and audiences that pay attention to them, and they're making 0 offers. And what most people do is they try and sell them more of what's not working. Well, Rich, I can get you more likes and more subscribers and more viewers and more. Just give me $2,000 a month. And if you show up and say, hey, Rich, I'd like to pay you for the distribution you've created. And by the way, if any of you guys are interested, I'm happy to connect you with Rich. Motorcycle is not my wheelhouse, but I could think of like 20 ways to monetize that. Get some affiliate helmets, motorcycle helmets, and affiliate motorcycles and motorcycle trips and the motorcycle course and the gloves and the shit that goes on the side of the bike, and arrange for motorcycle adventures. There's probably, 1,000 fucking people putting on motorcycle adventures all around the world that would love more buyers. And all Rich would have to do is say, hey, if you guys are interested in that, check out this. And you may like it, right? And so when people have distribution, they often have no idea what to fucking do with the distribution they've created. And this is like, I was just talking to somebody else in another mastermind I'm part of. There is a email list he's been working. It's like a Disney thing. It's like a Disney themed thing. And they built an audience, an email list of 1.5 million people, and they make exactly fucking 0 from it. They hope to get ads and sponsorships on their website. That's how they make a little bit of money doing it. And so when he shows up and says, hey, let me help you sell some things and monetize your audience, and we'll make you look good in the process, and they'll be related to the thing you sell, and we can just split it. We can be 50-50 partners. And what happens is you get control of their distribution, and you put offers into their distribution. And if you do it right, they're not even offers you personally have to fulfill on. There's no ads to run, right? Like if you're selling motorcycle helmets, like you ain't going to be making helmets. You ain't going to be shipping them. You're just going to someone else who already makes motorcycle helmets, says, hey, I'd like to bring you a shit ton of buyers. Would you be open to paying me a referral fee to do it? And they almost always say, yeah. And so what happens is you create money for other people using the assets they already have, and then you negotiate percentages for yourself, and those things can run in the background. In the case of Rich's stuff, like his videos get another 1,000 views this week, and another 1,000 views next week, and another 1,000 views the week after that, and another 1,000 views the week after that. So there's always new traffic. There's always new eyeballs coming into his little distribution center. So if you understand that, I think everybody's working for the wrong thing. Everybody's like, how do I get clients? I'm like, how do I get control of assets? You change one for the other, and you stop thinking like a middle class person where you're trying to get paid to sell a service, and you're trying to get control of assets that will directly generate money. What will happen is, like the example I give like this. Now, this is the example I'm using in book 2 that hopefully illustrates this point. But imagine, I've sold stuff through direct mail. So imagine we write a letter together, and we infuse it with Frankie Finn copy, and we choose the right prospect, and we send it in the mail, and you can have a guaranteed sale for a $2,500 per month service. So that, like a 30K client per year, you send that letter in the mail and it's guaranteed. Okay? That is on behind door number 1. Door number 2 is I say, I'm negotiating a deal with the post office so we can send free letters across all of America whenever we want and make as many offers as we want. Well, most people in practicality are working for get the $2,500 per month client, when in reality, if you control the distribution, if you can send letters for free everywhere, anytime you want, and make offers, like, you basically own the fucking money machine. Like, you can do that anytime you want. You just make an offer to the right people, and you will have, like, if you got a financial newsletter, you can pull up a list of everybody who buys financial newsletters and send it for free to all those people, right? So this is why I say the money is made when you buy shit, and not enough people have their eyes on distribution, and we're going to go deeper into how to get control of that. And it's super easy because you're not trying to sell them anything. You're trying to say, I want to pay you for the distribution you've already created. Would you be open to that? And you can always, you do not have to use today money. You can use tomorrow money that after I get paid, I'll share some of it with you. And so that's the deep kind of stuff that and this is why I wrote the book Beyond the Agency Box. I think there's some brilliant people in our space, like Josh Nelson comes to mind, Jeff Miller. I'm sure there's plenty other ones I'm forgetting that teach people how to grow 7-figure agencies. I want to show you guys how to get 7-figure assets and not even have clients to serve. Like, why work so hard for clients when you don't need to? Unless you really love running Facebook ads or building websites or doing SEO, why do that? Do I think it's important to own or control those assets? Either way, it doesn't really matter. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, it's super easy to get control of Facebook groups. Like, in Facebook groups of buyers. Like, I did this recently, and I haven't really had time to keep up on it, so I haven't, fully utilized the asset, but I just reached out to a guy who had a community of 60,000 buyers. He got too busy to keep up with it and said, dude, I'd love to, help you monetize that group, and I'll pay you 25% every time we sell something. Would you be open to it? And he said, sure. And they just turn over a 60,000 person group. It's like that. That's how quickly you can get. How long would it take me to build a 60,000 person buyers list? Probably a while. How long did it take me to get control of it? Like 5 minutes. The example I use in the book, and I'm giving you guys a little bit of a sneak preview here, but we're going to go deeper into this, by the way, for those of you guys who come in and hang with me in Mexico. So you guys, if you haven't already checked that out, I would suggest you do. So if you understand assets conceptually like this, that there are 3 ways you can get assets in your life, and most people miss the easiest one because they don't understand the skill set. But where I was living in my old house in Mexico, we didn't have a pool, and it was like a pretty wealthy area where 50% of the houses have a pool. Ours wasn't one of them. And it gets hot as balls in the fucking summer, 40 degrees Celsius, 100 Fahrenheit, really fucking hot. And a swimming pool becomes the only thing you want to do in the middle of the day when the sun is beating down, or stay inside in air conditioning. And I remember we went to our neighbor who had a pool, and our neighbor was one of these snowbirds that's there 2 to 4 weeks a year. They come down for a couple weeks in the winter, and then they go back, and it's their second home, and they're barely there. And I said, hey, I know you're paying this money, $10 a week to get your pool cleaned. I'd like to just pay that for you. And she said, okay, what's the catch? And I said, well, I live next door, and I want to take my kids swimming. And she said, oh, you don't even have to pay for the pool thing. You can just let your kids swim whenever you want. Go ahead, go for it. You can use my pool. So just like that, we got a pool. Now, if you use a swimming pool as a metaphor for an asset, there are 3 ways you can get an asset. One is you build it yourself. So if I built a swimming pool myself, it would take me a lot of fucking time, and there'd probably be a lot of mistakes and a lot of trial and error, and I'd probably have to watch a lot of YouTube videos and still pay a lot of money. But eventually, I would get a swimming pool if I was persistent in that. The second thing I could do is I could hire somebody, and it would cost more money, but there would be way less mistakes, and the timeline would shrink dramatically if I hired the right person and they just built a swimming pool for me. Or you can make an offer and get control of a swimming pool that already exists. And what most people do, most people don't even work for assets at all. They try and work for clients, which is middle-class thinking brought to business. But when they do start to discover the power of assets, they try and either build them all themselves or hire people to build them, when in reality, it's actually so much easier just to make offers, and it's almost instantaneous, and it costs nothing, right? Hey, I'd like to clean your pool for you. Cool, what's the catch? Well, I want to swim in it. There you go. They hand over control of an asset. And there are plenty of assets, especially digitally, that are neglected. People have forgotten them. They're no longer important, and so they're just kind of sitting in the pipeline, not used, waiting for you to make an offer. And so to the question that came earlier from Zach, like, how would you create $1 million? Like, I would get control of $1 million worth of shit that already exists. I would get control of $1 million worth of swimming pools by making offers on $1 million worth of swimming pools, but I wouldn't try and create swimming pools. If you understand that, you can exponentially shortcut the game. We got a couple of, I guess I should probably speed this up or we're going to be here a while. Okay, sorry. John says, do you do any culture building with remote contractors? Culture building is commonly discussed with agency owners who have employees. For those with remote part-time contractors, do you do anything to build culture other than being easy to work with, making timely payments? I have contractors who become pretty important in my business and they are A-level players. I want them to prioritize the work I give them and also be loyal to me. They are pretty similar goals when I have full-time developers working for me in the office. For those with remote contractors, especially offshore ones who aren't full-time, but you give a good amount of work to, do you try to build culture? If so, how? Finding good contractors is hard, and you sometimes have to kiss a few frogs before you find the right one, so I want to make sure I'm doing something to stick around. So Joey Coleman, I actually just interviewed, by the way, who wrote Never Lose a Customer Again, also has a second book called Never Lose an Employee Again. And the idea is a lot of the same principles of retaining clients apply to retaining employees. And so I believe that obviously like timely payments and things like that are the baseline. It's little extras. Larry Weinstein says some deets on Mexico. I would love for Larry Weinstein, man. The man himself. I'm going to put a link for you right below, my man. Where are we doing this? Sorry, I'm waiting for slow Mexican internet to load my Google Doc. Come on, internet, I believe in you. I'm coming back to that hiring question in just a second. But this is for any of those you guys who are thinking about coming to hang with us. Why can't I not reply to Larry? I guess I can't reply. I'll write a comment, Larry, and it'll go below. I'll just put the Google Doc. So anyways, when it comes to like actually getting good people, it's actually the above and beyond touches that create loyalty. So for me, the guy who edits these videos, his name is Mark. Shout out to Mark. And one of the things that Mark and I have an arrangement for is Mark really loves reading. It was very obvious if you click on Mark's Facebook profile, there's books everywhere. And I said to him like, hey, I want to encourage your reading. So like, let me buy you a book. Every month I'll buy you a new book and it'll just be a thank you as part of working with me, right? I have another one who has kids, and it's like, one of the things I do for people with kids is like, I don't care when you work. You don't need to do any specific hours. But what I want from you is outputs. And so I'm big on like, hey, like I want stuff to get done. I want results to happen, but I'm not gonna like, if you need to do it at 3 a.m. when your kid's asleep, like do it at 3 a.m. when your kid's asleep. Like I'm not here to hound you for meetings. And so one of the things you do, one of the things that's really helpful is if you want to create a culture, this is the simplest I've ever heard about creating a culture. There's probably more to it than that, and there's probably people who are better than me at creating culture, but I want to give you the short form version of it, is write down what you want your mission and values to be, and then say it over and over and over and over and over and over again. And so like when I've been with part of organizations who really did this right, one that comes to mind that actually Larry will know is my man Ken Hardison, the founder of the Personal Injury Lawyers Marketing and Management Association. As at the start of every meeting, we would repeat the mission of like, hey, we're trying to get 1,000 or I think it was 5,000 lawyers to have 7-figure and above practices with complete freedom and autonomy. We'd say that at the start of the meeting. We'd say it again at the end. And we want to be the best in client service in this industry. And we did it over and over and over and over so everybody knew what we were creating. And that was, again, remotely. So that's the reason why I give that example. But it's really about just deciding what you want your culture to be and then just reinforcing it by saying it over and over and then doing things that are in line with that. If you do that, you can create any culture you want. And then as far as the loyalty, it's the little above and be extras. And I'll tell you the most forgotten above and beyond extra for employees is just to say periodically, I appreciate you because ... whatever your real reasons are. And if you just tell people that, I'm telling you, like, they may be able to make 10-20% more money elsewhere, but if they get treated like shit, they're gonna still want to work with you, right? So I appreciate you because is like one of the most underrated things in managing people. And I hope that's helpful, my man. Last question on the docket, unless you guys got any more. Alex says, for those of you guys who are in the media buying space, where do you find your team members? Upwork, Indeed. Do you contract or do you hire? How's the job market? So here's my rant on media buying. And I've done this before, and it's probably like not my most popular, most well-received kind of message, but nonetheless, I think it's the truest, which is most people that think they need media buyers do not need media buyers. And I'll tell you why, okay? If you look at any advertising platform in existence, Google, Facebook, any other one, almost always the platform starts off with like really cheap ads, and then the longer and longer and longer time goes on, the more those ad costs go to like infinity, right? So I saw this, I had friends who were in the Google ads in the very beginning days, and they could get like major keywords for like less than 5 cents a click. And if you're selling like a $500 course, you can send hundreds and hundreds of clicks. And even if just one person buys, the math will work and you can scale it to the moon kind of thing. But what happens is those same clicks are like $18.50 a click now on Google. And it's very hard to make that same math work. Same thing on Facebook. When I first got into Facebook, it was like pennies to get clicks, and the targeting options and stuff were limited. But man, like you can get some really cheap traffic and a lot of it. And then over time, like Facebook has gotten more expensive. And so what happens to every ad platform in existence is ad costs go like this. And what most people try and do to counteract that is they try and find out, how can I find a superstar who can make my ad costs go down? And I think that's a losing game. I don't think you can win that game long term. Like I literally don't think you can make ad costs go down when the platform goes up long term. You may find like some short term success in that journey, so I'm not knocking it. But I think what most people who think they need media buyers is they need a more sophisticated back end. And what happens is, if like let's say you sell a $600 course, and every time you acquire a buyer, it costs you $800. You're not going to do that for very long unless 10% of those people take a $25,000 mastermind. And if X percentage of the people who take the $25,000 mastermind renew for 4 or 5 straight years, and so one of those people is worth $100,000 to you, then all of a sudden the math works. And so I feel like when a lot of people think they need media buyers, they actually just need a better back end. And so I'm not saying you can't make media buying work. And probably the best places I've actually found them are Facebook groups on the specific platform. So like if I'm looking for a Facebook media buyer, groups about Facebook ads. If I'm looking for a TikTok buyer, groups about TikTok. If I'm looking for a YouTube media buyer. But having said that, most people who think they need a media buyer don't, because they're trying to offset the rising ad costs in the platform by trying to find cheaper ads, and it's just a losing game. It's so much easier to like sell something that makes people happy, where you can keep selling a recurring thing on the back end. And the more you think about the back end, like the real money by all the pros is always made on the back end. And so a lot of times when people are trying to fix media buying costs, there's only so much juice you can squeeze out of that orange. But the beautiful thing is, if you look at that as step one, you can take that seed out of that orange and you can plant more orange trees, and you can end up with infinite juice. And so, like I see this in, like some of the groups and stuff I'm part of. Like if I actually do the math, like per member and things like that, like, like on some of the things, like we're averaging like $50 a member in some of our communities and things like that. And it's like, how much could I spend on ads if the average person is worth $50? Like, is it worth spending $5 or $10 to get somebody in the community if an average person is worth $50? Like, obviously that doesn't mean everybody's going to give you $50, but like the math generally works. You can spend a lot. So a lot of times when people are looking for media buyers, they're trying to overcome bad math, but they're trying to overcome it the wrong way, which is like, how do I make my ad costs cheaper? And you can't win that game long term. You just can't. And so the more you become better at how can I pay as much as I need to pay on ads, I think the more success you'll have with it long term. Looks like that's all the questions we got for now. As mentioned in the startup, and as Larry did, we are having a get together at my house in sunny La Paz, Mexico. I think it's going to be one of the coolest events we've ever had. I priced it super cheap too, by the way, on purpose, because like I just like hanging out with you guys. And so we are about 60% full right now, but we are not 100% full. So we do have a few spots. If you guys are thinking about coming, what I would suggest, check out some flights. There are 2 ways to get here. One of those is to fly to the city of La Paz. It is a small regional airport, and sometimes you can find flights, but most times you're much better pricing a flight to Cabo, and then they have a 2-hour shuttle for about $30 that'll take you to the city of La Paz. Cabo is a much bigger international airport, has way more flights in and out from way more locations and things like that. And check that out. And then as long as you get here, we will get you to my house. We got a driver. We got some amazing food. We have some adventures planned. And of course, we're going to go deep on some of this business stuff. I haven't formalized all the content for the event. And I'll tell you why. Because I like to talk to the people before we come, find out what their single biggest challenge and struggle is. And then we work on those things at the event. So I don't have a specific script, which is why I've not filled it in. But I want to just like move the needle for you guys in whatever the thing that is that matters the most. So if you're stuck on hiring, let's build the hiring system when you're here. If you're stuck on acquisition, let's build the acquisition. If you're getting clients but they're not like the high paying kind of clients that you want to get, let's focus on getting you the high paying clients that you want to get. So whatever those kind of challenges, if you're stuck on building systems, let's build systems while you're here, all those kind of things. And then there's super other smart people that are going to share some cool stuff. So that's all I got to say about that. And then, as I mentioned at the top of the hour, we're just making the Wolfpack cooler and cooler. I want to bring more and more help to you guys and make this easier. And for those of you guys who are in there, you're going to find we're going to be jamming on how to make $500 to $5K per month recurring, passive automated recurring income by just securing distribution and plugging in some recurring offers, as we were talking about earlier, without needing clients. That's the magic part for me, is I always hated fulfillment, even though like I know how to do it, I'm good at it, and I know how to hire people and build teams. I don't really like it. That's just the honest to God's truth. So if you guys are like me and you just want the recurring income without the having to do shit, without having to answer and send reports and why are we not number one yet and those kind of things, then you'll be interested in checking that out. You can get started for as little as $1,000 right now, and we don't take out payment twos till you're actually winning. So it's like a self-milking cow, as one of my mentors would call it, the pay as you profit kind of dealio. So if you're interested in that, check out the Wolfpack below, and I will see you guys on the other side. Happy Monday, much love, appreciate you guys. May the force be with you. Hey guys, if you like this video, you'll probably also like our free Facebook group, Beyond Agency Profits, Agency Lifestyle Design. You can get free copies of the book inside here. I look ridiculous. We're doing weekly Q&As, giving answers to all your questions. Some of the best, smartest, brightest people. We've got lots of industry leaders doing 7, 8 figures and beyond. It's a literal who's who of the brightest agency owners that I know, as well as lots of tips on scaling and stuff, books that work. So if you're not already part of it, you're going to want to be part of it. So make sure to click the link. I put it in the description of the video as well as in the pinned top comment below. So just scroll down and you can join, and it's totally free.